Chelsea 2, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Chelsea without 14 first-team players, Jim Campbell, put in a very good performance.
They did, and they look really structured. Dare I say they look better without Enzo Fernandez?
Ooh.
That midfield just seems to function a little bit more.
Yeah.
Are you trying to create a problem? Because they had no problems off the back of that.
Yeah, why not? I wasn't consciously doing it, but I don't
You're
feel
that
that I can
committed.
refute the charge.
I haven't heard Andy ask if someone was creating a problem ever since we used to go to the pub regularly. Incredible stuff. Yeah, I mean, look, Chelsea. Maybe we shouldn't be that surprised. I mean, they've only been beaten once in the last 17 home games, and they have turned it round at home. At the start of the season, it was a place where teams would quite enjoy going, whereas now. They seem to be in the groove at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they've taken the majority of a season to gel, but it does look like it's gelled, doesn't it? And as you say, there are 14 first-team players missing there. There's a bit of a siege mentality, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny, Andy, you and I were talking before we came in here about how strange it is that Chelsea feel like an underdog story at the moment. Because they shouldn't, and yet they do. Because they have faced a lot of quite strange scenarios that not very many teams do.
Yeah, they have, absolutely. But I think what was the interesting thing about this is that out of that, I mean, maybe having no option is the bonding experience. You know, maybe it makes everything a little bit simpler in a way. But I think we've seen little bits of little hints of where Chelsea might be going, where there might be a direction. But this is the first time that I thought, okay, there's a complete performance where you can see what they're trying to do and how it might work and how they might be successful.
Against a side who are playing for something. I mean, I know they're very poor from Spurs, but you've got to give Chelsea all the credit in the world.
Sure.
And Jackson scoring, Vish. There's something that he should be watching back and should watch back.
Yeah. It's not really a goal that would keep you up for very long, though, would it? I mean, it's it was actually quite a good header, but I think
a more difficult finish than it looks.
Yeah, though I actually think you'd probably set up and keep watching it because you'd want to see why Son and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg were pushing each other out of the way.
Yeah, they just no one called it.
Yeah,
and absolutely Keystone copped it. And yes, it's been a while.
I did wonder if because. They're both looking at the ball and then they just feel hands on each other. And I wonder if they thought it was like a Chelsea player.
Yeah.
Because one of them pushes the other. I can't remember which one. And then he looks at him and is like, well, why have you done that? It's like, you pushed me.
Yeah, it was. They've Liz Trust quasi courting.
Back on creating problems where there are none. I think the thing that's made me even more convinced than ever that Cole Palmer is not just a really good player, but absolutely elite, is his reaction. Like that Cristiano Ronaldo-esque reaction of, that's not my goal, so I don't really give a shit.
There was a bit of that. He did. I mean, could we say he missed an open goal earlier on in the game? Is that a bit harsh, maybe?
Well, it hit him, really, didn't it? Yeah, I think it is a little harsh.
But you're right, though, to say that about the free kick. He was thinking, that was so nearly a beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine, we're 2-0 up. But
I think he should be happy that it went in because I think we've mentioned before, often those moments of brilliance that don't turn into a goal, whether it's a free kick like that or it's an incredible through pass that the striker doesn't convert, often they get lost.
Yeah.
But this is going to live on in Jackson's goal.
That's right.
Because of Jackson's goal.
But maybe he's a keen fantasy manager thinking, I don't even get an assist for that.
I think he does.
Does he get an assist for that?
Yeah.
Does he?
Yeah.
Not sure. We have to look at the small print on that one, but I do agree with you.
Sorry, he gets an FPL assist.
Yes.
Okay,
different thing. Yeah.
He should be thanking Jackson.
He should in some ways, yeah.
For a change, he should be thanking Jackson.
But it's just what Andy was saying before about how you feel they've always had this in them. Chelsea have always had this in them. If you look at some of the games they've messed up at home, they've messed them up, if that makes sense. They've given away points left, right and centre, often wins into draws against teams that they've basically bossed for 75, 80 minutes and found themselves quite stuck. And I suppose what you were saying before about maybe it bonds them a bit more with the lack of options. I suppose it does in some way, because the one thing about Chelsea always seems to be that the people on the field know that there's £500 million worth of talent on the bench and I've probably only got 60 minutes here. I think about that with Madueke a lot.
Yeah.
When he starts, he's often the first person to get taken off. When he's on the bench, he's often the first person to come on.
You could argue that's the thing with the penalty thing a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That sort of anxiety to prove yourself all the time. But I mean, that really speaks for you if you're Pochettino. And it is coming to that point where everyone's discussing Pochettino and do they keep him? Do they get rid of him? Obviously, the Sky interview was very much focused in that direction afterwards, and he seemed a bit exasperated by it, really. But of course, there were the rumours about them offering Antonio Conte to come back, which would be the stupidest thing they've done so far by a long way.
Yeah, but would you be up for it though, Andy?
Of course.
Yeah, there you go. That's the barometer, isn't it? I mean, there's reports in Italy saying that, apparently Chelsea have been talking to Antonio Conte, which is crazy. I mean, have they paid him off yet? Because the sacking cost Chelsea £26.6 million when they got rid of Conte.
But isn't that in a classic Italian sacking? You invite back the bloke that you're still paying because it doesn't cost you more money.
Yeah, is that what they're thinking with Conte? They're thinking, that money we owe you. If you just come back, then we'll give it to you, and we don't actually have to pay you. Is that what they're trying to get round it? I don't know, but I mean that's taken into account all the compensation paid to him and his coaching staff and legal fees and so on. Learn from the past is what I would say to Chelsea if you are listening. But Pochettino, on the subject of him, of course, he has claimed that Chelsea fans fall in love with him when he's out and about. He said that the chats that he has with people in person are rather different to some of the stuff you see in the media, some of the stuff on social media, of course. He did say, though, that he's often walking his big old Rhodesian Ridgeback dog, and he says perhaps that's the reason why they're not so, negative towards me.
Is it a veiled threat between the lines, that? You're not so tough when I got my dog, are you? Bump into people all the time. They seem to like me a lot then.
Yeah,
Mauricio Pochettino has announced the signing of an XL bully.
Maybe we'll see the dog in the bench.
Terry, come here.
Yeah.
No, you're not allowed in that chair.
I get the impression from what I've seen and what you chaps have just said there, I agree with that about Chelsea. I think that if they sack Pochettino in the summer, I don't think it would be a good move.
I think it's quite interesting when you see how his interaction is with the squad. I think he does have their respect, and I think, like, genuinely, to be a bit cynical about this all, because they've got quite a selfish. Let's say they've got quite a selfish group because they've all been thrown together, and naturally there isn't the same kind of cohesion that you'd get at, say, another club where they've been together for 2-3 years or so. Every one of those players would have some kind of agenda and have an agent, over their shoulder, being like, "Can't believe you're not getting enough game time, this, that, and the other." And so now you're in a situation where, if things had really gone to shit behind the scenes, almost certainly would have heard about it. But there's been nothing of that ilk.
A couple of Wednesdays ago, Vish, you did say that he's not got a good track record with working with creative players. Do you think there's, that could be still a sticking point in this role at Chelsea?
Well, I suppose, but if he's able to implement a bit more of a structure, as we saw last night, it kind of doesn't matter. I suppose it's letting them off the leash, which he seems less comfortable with. Because even if you look back to that Spurs squad, it was very kind of set in, say someone like Eriksen, for example, who you'd deem as quite a creative player. He was actually very sensible with the ball. All told, he was obviously on, his assists and the chance creation was quite high, but I think he would, never take more than 3 touches.
I mean, he got the best out of Delhi, didn't he?
Yeah, but even Delhi was actually quite back and forth. Really, it wasn't exactly like he was.
If you think when he's introduced into the team,
a bit more functional.
When he's introduced into the team, he's quite deep, isn't he?
Yeah,
Delhi.
I mean, what do you think, Andy? Do you think Chelsea will and even should stick or twist with Pochettino?
They should stick. They definitely should stick, and they always should have stuck because it was obvious from the last summer that it was going to take time. And if you're seeing a little bit of progress, I don't think whether they qualify for Europe or not should be the barometer of whether they fire him or not. They're just creating a problem for themselves because if they have to go back to square one in what is something that's in development, I just think it's a crazy decision.
Also, as well, they should have won the League Cup final.
Yeah.
And that's not Pochettino. Pochettino can't stick the ball in the net for those players. The way he set them up against Liverpool, I'd say he got it right. And also should be in the FA Cup final as well. So,
there are definitely bright spots, aren't there? And actually,
for sure.
They've got 6th to aim at, which is way higher than really anyone would have predicted them to finish sort of let's say halfway through the season as an arbitrary point. They've got West Ham, Forest, Brighton and Bournemouth to play. And the form they're in, they can expect to get a decent return of points out of that. They've got, Newcastle and Man United above them. Yeah. Man United look wobbly, as we know. Newcastle are in a bit of form, but they're in a shootout there to finish a lot higher than expected. So I think to sack Pochettino, if they finish 6th, reach a cup final and a semi-final in the context of it would be a lot. And they're just starting to sort of forge a bit of an identity, aren't they?
And I think where they are, the idea of getting in the Europa League or the Conference League is actually perfect for them, because it's not like the Champions League where you're absolutely swamped by the schedule and the intensity of competition. You still get to rotate a bit. Everyone gets their game, which I think is quite important, certainly in the position they're in at the moment, because pruning that squad, which is maybe what they need to do, will be quite difficult.
When West Ham won the Europa Conference League, you rightly pointed out the financial disparities between some of the clubs. Chelsea in that competition.
Yeah, imagine.
It'd be absolutely outrageous. One man who will be leaving Chelsea at the end of the season is Thiago Silva.
Yes.
We'll miss him, and we'll miss his wife's comments about Chelsea on social media.
Well, she might still pipe up.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Keep the flame still burning.
Yeah.
Well, she was the one who put everyone onto this, because at the FA Cup semi-final, she, I think she put on Instagram, it's like my husband's last chance at getting to a final.
Yeah.
And so, like, Chelsea fans, well, God, he's leaving. And then a week later, he's like, yeah, I'm going, by the way.
Yeah, he did a little farewell video, as is all the rage these days.
Is that not pretty cool? That, I know there's a lot to be said of like the heft of the Premier League, but I think seeing someone like Thiago Silva in your league is like, right, a bit of heritage there.
Well, when he went to Chelsea, I mean, people often say some players, when they're in the twilight of their career, won't maybe go to the Premier League because it's faster and quite furious, which is when Ibrahimovic came over. You thought, fair play to you, mate.
It's easier to sidestep the Premier League and avoid the possibility of your reputation getting shredded.
Totally.
And there was a money grabbing element as well to it, wasn't there?
Yeah, and I think when you look at Thiago Silva, it's extraordinary that, especially when you consider what's happened to Chelsea over the last couple of years. A, he's got his Champions League, which I'm delighted for.
Yes.
And B, he kind of emerges with his reputation enhanced in some way.
Quite
it's
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah, and he's been there a long time now as well. It's
4 years. Yeah,
absolutely amazing. I think
This
people
is
thought it
fourth
was
season.
like, 1 year, see how it goes, plug a hole. But he leaves really as a legend, which is so impressive.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair to say. I mean, domestic cup finals he's been a bit unlucky in, but Champions League, Super Cup, Club World Cup, which is the biggest prize at club level.
Exactly.
Lest we forget.
Can I just take a moment to talk about how much I enjoyed Mark Cucurella's performance and every Cucurella performance, because it's like watching a ragdoll play football. It is amazing. The poor guy gets fouled constantly, flips all over the place because he doesn't have any bones by the looks of it, and it's so entertaining.
They call him the jellyfish.
Yeah, I think he gets fouled so much, and I can't help but imagine that it's just not just on the pitch as well. Like driving home, it just becomes like Mario Kart. He doesn't know why. It's like the most beleaguered footballer I've ever seen.
It's funny because I just thought of him as a pretty good footballer, but now in my mind, you've turned him into one of those petrol station forecourt men.
Yes, got a bit of that about him, except he does fall over.
He does look a little bit like a side character in SpongeBob, doesn't he?
Yeah, got that going for him as well.
Yeah,
very enjoyable.
Good to give him a mention. We have to talk about Spurs, gentlemen. Ange Postecoglou said when being grilled by the press, "Come on, mate, we didn't play well. What do you want me? What do you want for me to write you a dossier on where it went wrong? We were poor today." He was furious.
Yeah,
we think of Ange as this sort of maybe slightly avuncular figure or friendly neighbour or something. I'd hate to be on the end of a telling off from him.
He can be a bit spiky in post matches sometimes, but I completely get it in this instance, because he's got two options here really, where he can essentially go into sort of detailed analysis about what Spurs' problems are, and then just hand an advantage to whoever they play next, just by explaining exactly what they couldn't quite get right. But the questions, and I don't know if this is a new thing in football or if it's just sort of like recency bias in my head, but the line of questioning in post matches when managers have lost does seem to be getting a bit harsher.
Yeah.
Like, essentially, it felt like the guy was going, "So that was a bit shit, Ange. You must feel a bit stupid. Are you a prat?"
Yeah, but do you not think though, because Ange has been a bit kind of friendly and laid back and quite approachable, maybe?
Yeah.
Do you think the press then? Well, the press do like to take the piss,
or maybe try and be a bit matey.
Yeah, exactly.
Familiar, yeah.
Indeed, yeah.
But
I mean, let's look at the two journalists in the room, Jim, shall we, for a moment?
But you see, I think if you'd gone about it, I do wonder though if the interview had gone about it a different way, would he have been even more pissed off? Because it was clear when Pochettino was shouting furiously during the first half that he wasn't happy. But then and that was the line of questioning, rather than being like, Angie, where did it go wrong?
Yeah. If you ask him a polite question, he's going to cut through it in his typically Aussie way anyway.
Yeah.
I think cut to the
the
chase.
Australians are just difficult. I've been saying this for ages. You never know where you stand with them.
It was weird though when Mick Jagger just went Angie. Thank you very much for indulging me with that.
Nick Hewer there.
Up yours.
You know, this was the first time since April, well, about 2 years, that Spurs have not registered a shot on goal in the first half.
Yeah.
And when you consider that the entire thing about Postecoglou's style of play is to make things more open at the right end of the field,
Yes.
as it were, that's quite jarring.
They were very flat in general, weren't they? They did
were.
not look like a team that were sort of pushing for the Champions League in particular.
Don't you feel that this has been coming for a while, though? Because to me, Spurs have been getting results better than their performances since the turn of the year. I don't...
Opposite to Chelsea, you could argue.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, they're conceding a lot of goals. I mean, they've conceded 14 set-piece goals in the Premier League this season, according to Opta. Only Forest, Sheffield United, Luton and Burnley have conceded more. So, I mean, there's an area that they're being targeted in clearly. They've only kept 6 clean sheets this season, which is their lowest tally since 06-07. So it's a huge problem for them.
Can I read out a little bit of a list? Do you remember when Spurs went to Villa Park and beat Aston Villa 4-0?
Yes.
Which we thought was a turning point in the race for fourth place. They then lost to Fulham 3-0. They then just about beat Luton at home. They drew with West Ham, beat Forest at home, and then they lost 4-0 to Newcastle. Obviously 3-2 to Arsenal, and this game 2-0
It's a stinking
on
run.
Thursday, and they've got Liverpool on Sunday.
Can you read that again?
I mean, Villa fans, again, have got to thank Fulham because the rot started at Craven Cottage.
Yeah, but they've had a really absurd, I suppose, 2024 so far, especially when you consider that with all the obviously Udogie gets injured, and that's catastrophic really for their front and back. But this was supposed to be the period where they get all their players back. Like Maddison's supposed to have been back in form around this period, having returned from injury, that kind of stuff, and just really hasn't worked out.
But I guess it's what you really think is reasonable, isn't it? Because if you go back to last summer, what Postecoglou was about is changing the atmosphere of Spurs, about changing the way the fans feel about coming to the stadium. Were they really expecting top four? Hoping for top four, maybe. Expecting, not so much. So I think they're going to end up with what is kind of a par or slightly above par season.
Yeah.
But the way the first half of the season went, accelerated expectation a bit too much, I think. But if you look at where they and Villa are at the moment, in terms of, because the top three have been so much better than everyone else, although obviously Liverpool have fallen back a little bit in recent weeks.
Your point stands, yeah.
I think Villa and Spurs going for that fourth place is like two bold men fighting over a comb. It's quite ironic, I suppose, that maybe the night when Villa made the biggest step towards getting that fourth place, they were getting battered at home by an inferior team in a European competition.
I mean, it was a huge consolation for them. I mean, Villa are 7 points above Spurs. Spurs have a game in hand. Can I just draw everybody's attention, though, that there's 4 games left to play. Manchester United are 6 points behind Spurs. Come on.
I mean,
come on, Eric, you can do it. Do it for us.
I think
do it
that
for
is-
us.
I think that is unlikely. I think Newcastle is the one you should be looking at.
Mate, I'm sorry. It would be this season, and it would be this Manchester United if they squirmed into 5th.
It would
and
be
you'd be
funny.
like, "How's that happened?"
But I genuinely think Newcastle is the one not
Newcastle
to
have got the
sleep
momentum.
on there, because United
agree.
aren't going to be, they're not going to suddenly become more functional in these final 4 games. But Newcastle are one of the form teams in the league at the moment.
True. Well, the good news for Spurs is that they go to Anfield on Sunday afternoon.
Nice little refresher.
Yeah, well, but the way Liverpool are playing, you wouldn't put it past
Yeah, I mean,
Spurs.
actually, both teams really need a performance, don't they? So, we say this a lot, and it doesn't always work out this way, but there is ding-dong potential.
now are we talking about two bold men fighting over a comb? Are we in that territory yet?
It depends if there's more VAR controversy like there was last time, Andy, during this game. And of course, Liverpool are struggling to score goals. I mean, Graham Souness ripped into Mo Salah this week. He called him the most selfish player I have ever witnessed.
You got to love that pundit who club comes first.
Yeah.
We've done so much over the last few years because of Mo Salah, and he's the most selfish person I've ever met.
It's an interesting definition of selfishness by a man who, on his Rangers debut, thought, I'm the manager, but my desire to absolutely crack that person in front of me in half is more important than the team that I'm managing.
You could, though, in those days, Andy. You could. In those
I
Right,
also
okay.
love the retired pundit weighing in on his old club, like chucking a mortar out of his conservatory. Like, it's always a huge opinion, isn't it?
Yeah,
great.
Have you heard John Major talking about the Tories recently? Anyway, but yes, that Spurs loss was a consolation, I suppose, in terms of feelings for Aston Villa fans last night, because they were beaten 4-2 at home by Olympiacos. Oh, dearie me. Where to begin? I mean, Douglas Lewis, I suppose, concedes a penalty and then misses the penalty, which would have got them to 4-3. And, I mean, you look at this one, Jim, and with Emery, with the squad they have, with the money that's been invested, you know, Andy rightly made the point, as I mentioned earlier, about West Ham in this competition. Like, you know, Villa should really be looking at this, and then to sort of mess it up, really.
They did mess it up, but there's also luck went against them a little bit, I think, as well. I think Leon Bailey should have had a penalty. They did look nervous, absolutely, but I think they're unfortunate that they're not still in this tie, because the fourth goal.
Are they?
The fourth goal can happen to anyone at any time, right? That can happen to Man City, and for it to happen 3-2 down at home in a game like this, it's the worst time for one of those goals to happen. So I think there's a bit of bad luck there. Like I say, I really do think Leon Bailey should have had a penalty.
But I mean, Watkins, the only still after those wins, Watkins scores like a minute or two after that.
But conceding 4 at home is just.
It was, and what was telling that they were nervous and the occasion was getting to them is when Watkins scored. Watkins, in his celebration, was saying, calm down. I mean, seldom do you see that. And Emery was obviously doing that as well when the goal went in. So, it was an extraordinary evening, but glorious stuff for Olympiacos, Andy. I mean, I know obviously Olympiacos have more recent, I suppose, experience and perhaps pedigree than Villa. And I stress recent because Aston Villa have won the European Cup, I'm well aware. But they're no mugs, is what I'm saying.
No,
but you'd still have fancied Villa, especially at home in this one.
Yeah, you would, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right about the fact that it didn't look like they could handle the occasion. And I think you can forget, like, never mind Europe, for any night match, like, Villa Park is fire. And it just seemed like a little bit too much for those players. I mean, in the sort of mistakes they made, I think they defended very nervily, particularly. And you think that after going 2-0 down, they get themselves back into the game and you think, okay, great. And then they give away a totally daft penalty, and it goes from there. And in terms of the penalty that Douglas Luiz missed, and it's unfortunate because, of course, he gives away the penalty, as you say, and then misses the one. And when he's a player who you're thinking, right, there's no doubt he's definitely going to score this penalty, it makes you think that it's one of those evenings. I mean, David Carmo, I mean, he pretty much gave away 3 penalties in one. He handballed it twice and then did the foul. He's like, ref, I think it's definitely a penalty now, in case you didn't see it.
On that Luiz missed penalty, it took a while for him to take it, because there was a bit of jostling on the edge of the box involving, obviously, both sets of players. I did think to myself, after a little while, I was thinking to those Villa players, you're holding up your mate here.
Exactly. And
I thought,
just don't rise to it. It's exactly what Olympiacos
surely
are trying to do.
I understand the advantages. You want to be right on the edge of the box in case there's a rebound. Totally get that. Margins of football, etc., etc. But ultimately, you're backing your mate to score, and now you're holding him up. So it's a small detail, of course, on a night where they're already 4-2.
It's like that individual Man City fan that didn't give the ball back to Bernardo Silva that cost them the Champions League this season. Like that one individual.
I think it's an excellent comparison, Jim.
And he wasn't even going to turn up.
Lest we forget, of course, Evangelos Marinakis is the owner of Olympiacos. He was seen celebrating with the fans. Apparently he also shook Peter Crouch's hand despite not knowing him. I can imagine Marinakis being quite dismissive of whoever's hands he who are you? I'm better than you. I'm bored of you already.
Imagine he'd be like, oh, this one's long. I'll have him for my human zoo.
Olympiacos 4th currently in the Greek Super League, although it's very tight at the top.
That atmosphere is going to be deranged when they get out there. It's going to be brilliant. Probably not for Villa.
Was it Olympiacos, Andy, where you witnessed the game didn't actually kick off because it kicked off in the stands?
Olympiacos were involved. It was away at Panathinaikos.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. The way you said that, were Olympiacos even the second team involved? Or was it just the fans rocked up and be like, right, let's just kick the shit out of this lot? There's two sets of supporters groups.
They were playing. Their fans were not present.
Right.
It was Panathinaikos fans and the old Bill.
And the old Bill.
Oh,
right.
As I believe they call them in Athens.
Can't trust the old Bill.
No, and you conducting it all.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Fair enough.
There's a pig over there. Get him. That's what you were saying.
Oh, it's such a great gag, that, isn't it, when someone says that? It's really
ACAB wrestle.
That's our initial things when I'm signing stuff.
All coppers, Andy Brassel. Dearie me. Right, everybody, before we take a break, our build-up to Euro 2024 has begun at last. Myself and Luke Moore brought you the first edition of Lions Watch yesterday. So if you haven't already, give it a go, give it a listen, damn you. We discussed England being the official favourites. It's not our opinion. They are the official favourites. Whether Eric Dyer should be brought into the squad and what can be done about that robot that's serving the England players at their resort. Get your ears around that lot. All right, coming up in the second half, we've got Burnley, we've got Luton Town, and we've got a little bit of championship chat too. See you in a moment.
And to everybody here, once again, thank you so much for the opportunity. And it's a true honor to be able to bring out the one and the only John Bon Jovi to be able to do.
What about the football ramble, everybody? God blimey, can you imagine such a thing? Old Pitters and John Bon Jovi on the same stage.
Yeah.
I've started curating festivals now, Marcus.
I'll tell you something, Andy. They call me the Puppet Master. Oh, my God.
That was from a tribute to Jimmy Buffett. So although it wasn't for you, I think in a way it was.
Well, we all love a buffet, don't we?
Sure.
So let's get back to Premier League. Burnley host Newcastle United tomorrow. It is a must-win game for Burnley. You would say so in this three-horse relegation battle that we've got. Now, Burnley, currently all the way down in 19th, have 24 points. Just 3 games remaining. Obviously, Forest are 17th with 26 points. Now, to put that in a little bit of context, the lowest ever points tally for a team staying in the Premier League is 34. Achieved by Brian Robson's West Brom in 04-05.
I mean, that is going to be usurped this season, isn't it?
You'd think so. Yeah. You would think so. Last mention for Brian Robson, though, Andy.
It's a shame that his record's going to get biffed, isn't it?
Yeah, true. But records are there to get biffed, Andy.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I think as a tribute to him, whoever stays up, the winning coach should come on the pitch in a shirt and tie and shorts, socks and football boots.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. That was Middlesbrough, wasn't it? When
he signed. Yeah.
Now, Vincent Kompany said of their team's running, there are 3 90 minutes to play, and every minute offers an opportunity to have a moment to remain in the club's history. It starts with that belief in yourself that this could be your moment. A lot of moments, Jim. A lot of moments.
Yeah, many moments.
Yeah.
More than 90, though. We know it's way more than 90. do stay switched on for the whole time that the match is happening.
Should only be 3 minutes. What?
Doesn't Kompany give the impression of a weary parent who knows that his children are never listening? But essentially, with parenting, if you tell your children something 100 times and they listen once, there's a bit of your brain that, for your own sanity, says, oh, they do listen to me occasionally. Whereas in any other walk of life, if you did something 100 times and it only worked once, you just bin it off.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I know what you mean.
That's the way that it goes for Kompany. I think he knows that there are more holes in this squad than a Swiss cheese, but on their day, they can maybe do a little something. Obviously helped out by the failings of the other teams down there as well. I wouldn't back them to get anything out of this, having said that.
Yeah, but it's their resilience has kind of been remarkable, really, considering that they've been 19th since the start of December.
Yeah.
And you kind of think that when you on the odd occasions where they have picked up points, you look at the table and think, right, so we might not, we're nowhere near.
Yeah.
And it's wild that they're in, I do agree with you. I think Newcastle are going to beat them on the weekend. But that might not actually mean anything, considering the way other results could go in their favour.
They'll still be in the mix.
Yeah,
you're right.
Well, they'll hope for the Newcastle team that put in that performance away to Palace the other week, because that was a very strange performance.
Yeah,
it was very
very
flat. Now they get back on the wagon against Sheffield United. However, Sheffield United missed a number of chances, as you know.
Well, that first half,
it was ridiculous. But they came roaring back and scored and won 5-1. So you'd think that they're back at the races. I mean, Alexander Isak is now in contention for the Premier League Golden Boot. 9 goals in his last 8 Premier League games. He's playing very, very well indeed. In terms of the Premier League Golden Boot, it's strange that it's very much up for grabs. I mean, Haaland, because of last season, we think, well, he's going to romp it. Now, I know he's injured for a lot of the season, or a significant part of it, certainly, but he's on 21 goals. You've got Cole Palmer on 20 goals, thanks to that game against Everton, of course. You know, that I got the stats up. But Isak himself is on 19 goals, as well as Ollie Watkins. I mean, Dominic Solanke on 18 as well, and Mo Salah on 17.
Worth mentioning Salah, isn't it? Because people have been criticising the sort of season he's had, and even in a season, you know, where it's been really, really complicated for them and for him, and he's missed a fair chunk through injury, he's still in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think post Africa Cup of Nations,
that was a big thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, give or take. You know, it's not been great. I mean, it would be incredible if, say, like a Dominic Solanke won the Golden Boot playing for Bournemouth. You know, I mean, that would be wonderful. But the way Isak's playing, Andy, you wouldn't necessarily put it past him.
Yeah,
Haaland is in front.
The interesting thing about Isak, I think, is not just in the context of Newcastle and what they're trying to do in terms of qualify for Europe for the rest of the season, but there's been increasing speculation, and mostly with Arsenal, about the fact that they've been sort of briefing towards we're going to have to sell a player for a substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
And everyone at this summer, and everyone has assumed up to this point that it's Bruno Guimaraes. Now, maybe the wind is blowing in a slightly different direction. Now, I suppose if they do have to sell someone big, there are a number of potential solutions. I mean, I would think Bruno would be the last one they'd really want to sell, because not just because he's a really important player for them, but he's absolute heart and soul. He's part of it. He's bought into it so much. Isak is almost irreplaceable, especially with Callum Wilson on the way out, and they're not exactly swimming in forward players. I wonder, is the move, if there's a market for him, do you sell Anthony Gordon because you've already got Harvey Barnes?
I reckon, I agree with you saying.
Again, ideally, you don't want to sell any of the three of them.
Yeah,
but
sure.
if they... The thing is, if you want to make a substantial bit of money selling players, you're going to have to sell someone that you and the fans definitely don't want to lose.
Well, I agree with your logic with Guimaraes, but I actually feel like he would be relatively the easier one to replace, because of the nature of midfielders. Because there are a lot of midfielders, and you do have, obviously it wasn't so much of a punt with Guimaraes, but there are other midfielders that you could look at who fit a certain profile.
And they've already signed Joelinton.
Yeah, which might extrapolate to doing what Guimaraes does now. Whereas, like Isak, if there was another player in available, he kind of wouldn't be available because one of the big clubs would snaffle him up. Yeah. And there wouldn't be an issue about Isak in terms of interest either, because I feel like he could walk into any team in the league.
I suppose he's the most complicated one to make profit from, isn't he? Especially in the PSR context.
Yeah, they spent 60 million on him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, would you think he would fit with Arsenal out of interest?
I think he'd be a fantastic signing for Arsenal. I would love him to sign for Arsenal. I wonder if... I just can't allow myself to think Newcastle would sell. I mean, I know that the idea is that they might have to. It would cost a lot of money. I think you're probably looking at another £100 million player. But apparently there is going to be a similar budget available to Arsenal this summer as there was last year. So not inconceivable. I mean, I think he'd fit, absolutely. He's got so much in his locker. His link-up play is brilliant. He's got the height as well that Arteta loves. And he's strong despite being so sort of like wiry. Mm-hmm. So I think he'd be an absolutely brilliant fit. Although there's also talk that because Havertz has fit so well into that role that they might rethink even buying a kind of traditional striker. So who knows? Not me.
Not you. All right, we won't ask you again.
Yeah, as we all can, I can only speculate.
Yes, of course. Well, let's go back to the relegation run-in. Forest head to already relegated Sheffield United tomorrow. Again, it's a funny one, isn't it? You think... If you're a Forest player, you think this is a good time to be playing them. They're already down. But yet, how many times have we seen when teams are already down, the pressure's off, and they put in a performance where you think, I could have done with that a few weeks ago. But yeah, and then Burnley obviously faced Forest on the final day of the season. Now, this is a remarkable stat concerning Nottingham Forest from their game against Manchester City on the weekend. They had more shots than Man City in both matches against them this season, becoming only the second team to outshoot a Pep Guardiola side, both home and away, in his career after Real Madrid in 2009-10.
It shows the dominance that this is even in this running order.
Yeah.
It's it
shows that Forest like to shoot on sight.
I read that completely differently. I read that as Morgan Gibbs-White is the absolute best. That's the way I read it. But I didn't at the match at Forest versus City last season. And sometimes stuff is just anomalous. I mean, in that game, Chris Wood got the equaliser to take a draw for Forest, and City genuinely had enough chances to win 3 games there. I know sometimes people say, "Oh, they had enough chances to win 3 games." They literally did have enough chances to win 3 games in that.
Yeah, they did. But yeah, you can trust them to have a go, Andy. Which, to be honest with you, actually, if you are down there, and you're a Forest fan, I would actually take some heart from that.
Forest are the funnest of those teams,
Yeah.
I think, to watch.
You wouldn't say Luton Town?
No, the Luton Town story is more fun. Actually, if you're talking about actually watching them, Forest are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Obviously not for their fans at the moment.
You'd like to see Rob Edwards doing another Bon Jovi cover with a rendition, not really a cover, actually. That's in the town square if Luton
What's the
stayed up.
Bit
difference?
Phil Brown, isn't it, really?
What's the difference between a cover would be his own slant on a Bon Jovi song?
In my head, a whole cover, you've got the whole band going, and you're
Right, I see, okay.
You're not doing a cover at a karaoke night.
Exactly. Well, he said, obviously, Luton playing Everton tonight at 8 p.m. He said he wants Kenilworth Road to be rocking for the game this evening. Well, I mean, get a bit the old John Bon out, Rob, and you're away. They have just had 4 victories at home, Luton, this season. So it's not been the kind of fortress that they would have liked it to be. But you're right, Andy. If they could stay up, it would be a remarkable story.
Yeah, I think with Luton, it feels to me that they've got very little left in the tank. That they had their finding themselves in the Premier League, and they've proved they're worthy of a place in the Premier League this season. I don't think they've got much left more to give in this. But I think the point that Vish made earlier is key. With this, it's a bit like what he was saying about Burnley. If they don't win this weekend, it's like if Luton don't win this weekend, they won't be out of it.
No.
I mean, they should be out of it when you look at their form over the last 6 weeks or so. But they're still not out of it. So
If Forest were to beat Sheffield United, though, if Forest win their game, though, then that
it's a massive if.
It is a big if, but
I could definitely see all 3 of these losing this weekend.
Of course, but this is I mean, come on. This is a glorious opportunity, and Forest fans will be saying, stop saying this. But look, they are playing a side who have 16 points this season, who have been terrible.
They've conceded 97 goals.
It's
Forest can conceivably win this by accident.
Yeah, exactly. And if Forest were to, Luton playing Everton, now I know Everton have stayed up, but I can't imagine Dice going, don't worry about this, lads, on the beach.
I think Everton are enjoying being good.
Yeah, they are.
Well, I think Luton just have to play without fear at this point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier said than done, isn't it? But things are starting to look stacked against them.
But
So they just need to approach it.
But Luton and Burnley, both second favourites in their games. Forest, and if Forest win and the others don't, then they've got that cushion with only 2 games to go. It's all ifs and buts, I understand.
And maybe a couple of points back next week.
It is, maybe, but it's a glorious opportunity this weekend for Forest.
Forest need to look at it and be like, look, we're playing a team that are 10 points beneath us.
Yeah.
We didn't think that was possible. But there's a team with 10 fewer points than us.
Yeah, exactly. So, it'd be an intriguing one. Speaking of Everton, though, Sean Dyche has revealed that his mother wasn't happy with him swapping his suit for a tracksuit, which... I've got to disagree with his
Mama Dyche.
With Mama Dyche. It's worked wonders for them.
Yeah, I love the respect he's showing for the tracksuit as well.
Well, this is people trying to squeeze something positive out of Everton. I think. Well, let's talk about your clothes.
I love that Sean Dyche is allowing them to.
Yeah,
as well. He's playing along with it.
Yeah,
I don't think we'd be having this conversation 2 weeks ago when they weren't safe. Now he's all just full of love and light.
Does it speak about his character? I mean, can you imagine if one of the journalists tried to ask Guardiola about his hoodie? Or Arteta about his little zippy top? They're just not interested. No. And Dyche is entertaining them and us, I suppose you could say. Speaking of formidable men, former Evertonian Duncan Ferguson is embroiled in a relegation battle of his own. Of course, manager of Inverness Cally Thistle. They have a huge game against Greenock Morton, 9th in the Scottish Championship. Anything less than a win will mean they go into a relegation playoff with the 2nd, 3rd and 4th placed clubs in League One in Scotland. A little bit convoluted, but I'm sure you get the picture. And Big Dunk is defiant. He said he'll stay and see out his 3-year contract no matter what. So that's the board told.
Is that a promise or a threat?
The board were thinking, you tell him.
I'll be back here next season.
Yeah.
Oh God, will you?
No matter what.
Imagine someone daring to put an arm around him, and if you've seen the Inverness Cally Thistle Stadium, the view is just absolutely spectacular. It's an incredible scene.
Yeah.
Dunk, look into the distance. Feel relaxed with me.
You get the music on and everything.
Yeah.
Are they playing him? They might think they're paying him protection money. We just pay him every week.
Yeah. protect our league status. I'll tell you what, job's done. Big Dunk did accuse already relegated Arbroath of giving up and downing tools against their rivals recently.
You can't even manage your own team. Stop trying to manage someone else's.
I mean, he could be part of a glorious dual relegation season because he was involved with Forest Green Rovers earlier in the season.
He was indeed.
He's still trying to pick the bits.
There's a pattern emerging here, Andy. Well, Inverness had to apologise on his behalf. Did he apologise? I didn't see any quotes.
Oh,
from
he
him.
definitely won't have apologised, will he?
For what? Were they down tools?
He's still busy picking bits of vegan burger out of his teeth, isn't he?
Oh, dearie me. Right, let's come back to England. It's the final weekend of the Championship this weekend. Every game is kicking off at 12:30 tomorrow. It's going to be good. There's a lot happening in the Championship, as there always is, of course. Now, we were singing Ipswich Town's praises on Wednesday and talking about them, you know, they are on the verge. I mean, you know, it's theirs to lose, isn't it, Ipswich fans? It's yours to lose. I think you're already there. Start celebrating already. No, but they have to avoid defeat to Huddersfield to make sure they finish second.
Well, you know what we were saying before about like teams are already down there.
Yeah,
you know, like I think they can. Yeah, so they can't. They can go level on points with. Say like Plymouth have 48 now and Huddersfield have 45, but Huddersfield's goal difference is so bad that there's basically no way.
They're already done. They're already done.
So, you know, they might play with a bit of freedom. And also bear in mind that Leeds play Southampton, and Southampton are guaranteed of that, of their specific playoff spot. So what would be the second of the playoff four. So they're kind of sorted with that. So they're absolutely be inclined to rest their players.
Yeah.
So they could still get a bit sticky.
Surely they won't stuff it up, Andy. Surely.
You're alienating an interesting part of the listenership.
No, I want them to go up. I want them to go up. But then I want them all to go up, Andy. We want Leeds. We want Southampton. Just a mug off Luke Moore. You know. Now, Birmingham City, they could be relegated after quite a mad season, which saw them sack their first manager, John Eustace, of course, when they were just outside the playoffs, and it was all looking all right. They hired old Wazza, Wayne Rooney. That didn't work out. He went. And
that was this season.
It's incredible, isn't it? And they could be relegated on the final day. They host Norwich City.
Yeah, and Norwich is still not guaranteed a playoff place.
No, exactly.
So,
no.
I mean, that's a nightmare fixture.
The last thing you want is the David Wagner group coming over the hill. So, So good luck to all those involved, and we look forward to reviewing it all on Monday, of course.
And now it's time for this.
Dean Smith also says you're an encyclopedia of football.
A what?
An encyclopedia of football.
I don't know what that means.
Here we are, Jack's Encyclopedia. Now, Luke got a win over Clan Campbell and over those on Marcus Mount last week.
Clan Campbell.
But the V2 Rocket himself, Vish is still the lineal champion. So, or holds the lineal belt.
I think I had V2 Rocket as an old email address.
Did you really?
You know when you're a kid and it's like the coolest thing in the world to have an email address? And I had like 20.
I remember you saying this before. I don't remember that phase.
Yeah, you
personally.
happy being
taking
named?
them all.
Happy being named after a Nazi Germany weapon?
Other people must have used it.
Did they?
Probably.
It was developed in Nazi Germany.
Right.
You know,
like there's some suits. People still wear those suits, don't they?
Spent your youth smashing up London, didn't you? So, you know.
And it was better for the rebuild, yes. Yeah.
Anyway, it's a simple game of categories. If you go too slow, I'll play Gary Neville's orgasm, and that will leave you 7 seconds to answer. So, who's going first? Marcus, I'm going to put you first.
Can I just say,
to my left.
Actually, Vish, are you going to have a go at Luke? Because he's been calling you out. You're here, he's not.
No, why is he so into it? I don't get it. It's because he just got good at the game, yeah? You don't do this. You have a go at me in person, but you leave it. He like tweets all the time.
Yeah, like I phone you
He's
in the middle of the night.
Burnley
and
of
stuff.
Jack's Encyclopedia.
What he doesn't realise is about maybe about a year ago, because he kept, I don't know what it was about, but I realised I had him muted on Twitter.
Rockets fire!
So it comes up,
here we
it
go.
came up on other people.
Get into the tube! The blitzkrieg is coming!
And it came up when other people were replying to it. And I was like, oh shit, I've still got him muted. So I unmuted him.
The mind games.
Unbelievable.
No, I felt quite bad about it. But
Dear. You're champion.
I invited him to
everybody.
football last week. It's fine.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with you, Marcus.
Oh, dear.
Right. So the first category. With Arne Slot almost confirmed as Liverpool manager, I want every Dutch manager in Premier League history. There are 9 answers.
Oh, not many. I'll have Eric Ten Hag, please.
And you'll be correct too.
Thanks.
Andy.
Can I have Louis van Gaal, please?
Yes, you can.
Can I have Gus Hiddink, please?
Gus Hiddink. Absolutely.
I'll have Ronald Koeman.
Ronald Koeman. Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly it's slim pickings, isn't it?
Did Dick Advocaat manage Sunderland in the top flight? I'm going to go Advocaat.
Sure did.
Well played.
I'm going to go Frank de Boer.
Correct.
Oh, well played. I'll have Rennie Meulenstein.
Also correct.
Oh,
Lovely.
yeah.
Andy. It's down to you, mate.
It's Torres to give Chelsea a place in the Champions League final. The headline has been...
Pep Linders hasn't been permanent, has he?
Nope.
It doesn't really count if it's for the weekend, does it? No.
No. So, Andy, you are out. Vish.
Ronald Koeman.
Marcus has already
shit.
had
Already
it.
said
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Shit.
Point to Marcus.
Mate, that was when you said there was 9 answers. I thought, well, we should, and then you kind of go, ooh,
You will kick yourself in the
I
foot
had
on the
I
two
had
remaining.
I had Ruud Gullit, yeah. Which
Yeah.
I just said.
Bruce Gullit and Martin Jol.
Martin.
Oh,
Of
my
your
dad.
parish.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, Rennie Meulenstein was enough.
So
Yeah.
that's
That's
a
a good
point for
one.
Marcus.
That was a good one, actually.
So the second category.
Martin Yol. God, blimey.
Top scorers for each season of the Championship since the league rebranded in the 2004-05 season. There are 19 answers. Andy, you go first.
Jamie Vardy.
Jamie Vardy.
No way.
Holy
No, he's not there.
shit.
He is not there.
If he's not been top scorer in the Championship should quite frankly be bad.
Vish.
Alexander Mitrovic.
Wanker.
There you go.
Absolute dick.
Marcus, you're
I'm
up.
really struggling here. Darren Huckabee, surely.
Darren Huckabee.
Surely.
Oh. That is a point to Vish.
That's a really
Darren
bad round.
Huckabee. It's a tough one, but I think it's one where you'll go a lot. So I'm going to read them all out. Andre Gray, Chris Wood, Chuba Akpom, Danny Graham, Daryl Murphy, Glenn Murray, Ivan Toney, Jamie Curitan, Marlon King, Matej Vidra, Nathan Ellington, Nicky Maynard, Ollie Watkins, Peter Whittingham, Ricky Lambert, Ross McCormack, Sylvan Ebanks-Blake, and Timu Pukki.
Yeah.
Wow.
Feels maybe gettable.
Even the
that
two
one.
names I had written down, Kevin Phillips and Tammy Abraham. No one.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It was it was a mystery grab.
So
Fair enough. I went first last time.
you're a point apiece. Andy, you are lagging behind, but you've got a chance to get back into it here. We've got a third category here. Vish, you will go first on the 20 players with the most red cards in Premier League history. There are 20 answers, obviously. It's a classic Vish noise.
I've got two names and I'm just not sure about. Francis Benali?
Francis Benali, he says. Incorrect.
Richard Dunn.
Richard Dunn is in there.
It was that or own goals.
No, because I remember he's got 2
Yeah,
regrettable
right.
stats.
Patrick Vieira.
Patrick
Surely.
Vieira is in there.
Ooh.
Okay, I had him. He had a lot of bookings, but surely Gareth Barry.
Good shout.
I took
Roy Keane.
Roy Keane is obviously in there. Disgusting noise.
Sorry.
You're getting that for that. You're getting Neville for that.
Stephen Gerrard.
Oh,
Very
Nice.
good.
it's got to be someone else Arsenal-y.
For that noise.
It's Torres to give Chelsea a place in the
Steve Bold.
Champions League final.
Marcus.
Hey, it's been a while.
You could have had Alan Smith, Andy Cole, Big Duncan Ferguson,
Wayne Rooney,
Frank Quadreau, Joey Barton, John Hartson, John Terry, Lee Catamol, Lewis Boa-Morte, Martin Keown, Nemanja
Lewis
Vidic.
Boa-Morte?
That's a surprising one, isn't
Yeah.
it? Nicky Butt, Paul Konchesky, Vinnie Jones, or Eunice Kabul.
Vinnie Jones.
Vinnie Jones.
Do you know what?
Was Vidic in there?
He was in there.
fucking hell.
I'm glad you messed that up because I had Jamie Carragher and Wayne Rooney written down.
Yeah, right.
Blimey.
Well,
I've stopped the rot.
you have stopped the rot.
Good work.
And I'll have that title, Vish.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Don't worry, I'll protect you from Luke Moore.
You're watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload. A single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.